Welcome to the show. It's the Dynasty Show here. Tuesday night, Nico gets paid. So we're going to talk about it. We've been saying to buy Nico for the last like 2 seasons now. But now he gets paid. So what does that mean? Let's talk about it. Daniel in the house. What up, Daniel? Kev, Nico gets paid. Glad I got some shares easy during rookie draft season. Yeah, especially with like Tank Dell becoming like healthy again and it being like the off season, like Dell rose up rankings and then Nico fell down and they were kind of like in the same spot. And then there's the huge question of who is the guy? Is it Nico or is it Dell? Like we've always been on the Nico side over here, but a lot of people love Tank Dell. And a lot of people think that Tank Dell is the guy. But showing that they just paid Nico, and you had to think that that was kind of the plan all along, right? Hey CJ, we're gonna go get Diggs, but we plan on signing Nico long term. Like I'm sure he gave the go ahead. I'm sure he gave the go ahead for that. But we've been saying like, don't worry about Nico. It's only 1 year for Diggs. The only worry for Nico was he going to get paid? They got more than enough money, so they finally paid him. Philip, what up, Philip? Peacock, what up, Peacock? How are you feeling, Peacock, with the Nico signing? You still got Dell for the next few years. Now you got Nico for the next few years. And then you got Diggs for the year. So, you make a run. And we'll see what's good with Nico. Can he stay healthy all season? Can he play the full season? CJ is the guy. That's right. That is right. But yeah, now all of a sudden, Nico's going to climb back up rankings. Like he was once, I think he was high as like wide receiver 10, 11. On like keep trade cut. He's always been for me around like that 11 to 13 range. I've always had him still up there, and we'll come out with the dynasty wide receiver ranking soon enough, but he's going to be up there. And now he's moving up, but there's always a time to buy, right? I mean, that was a time like right there when Diggs got signed, that was the opportunity where you had a chance to buy Nico Collins. Now that he gets the bag, it's too late now to buy. Like it's going to cost you too much. It's too late now. You've got to get in on it early before it happens in Dynasty, or else you're paying, top price. You're paying the ceiling price. Bogey, what up, Bogey? What's good? So Nico now, I mean, where is he at? On keep trade cut, he's now wide receiver 18. And I'm sure that's going to go up now, in the next few days. There's already been a bunch of trades just today for Nico Collins. We can look at a couple of those. We'll see what we think. Because right now, Nico just behind Pittman, Devonta Smith, Ayuk, Drake London. Ahead of guys like DJ Moore, Zay Flowers, Tank Dell, DK, Jordan Addison, T. Higgins. We'll talk about some of those guys too a little bit later. But yeah, Nico getting the bag is that's big for Nico and his stock. A lot of people were upset when Diggs got signed, or were just, even if you still liked Nico, the perception in the community was that his value was down. So you couldn't move off him like that. Aiden, what up, Aiden? What kind of role can you see Diggs and Tank having in the offense this year? Got to assume the guy they paid is the go-to, right? Yeah, I mean, he was the go-to all along. For me, Nico was always going to be the X wide receiver. And then you've got Diggs at this point in his career. Maybe it's best for him to play inside, but him and Tank Dell both is kind of interchangeable, whether they're in the slot or the outside. So we'll see what happens there. But Nico is always going to be like that X receiver. He's that bigger guy. I mean, he missed a few games and still had 1,300 yards. So now he come and they played it smart too. Like you see what's happening now with like the Ayuk situation and all that. Like San Fran just fucking it up and not paying him early enough. Now you got like Amon-Ra gets his contract. Like everybody's getting the contracts now. And it's costing you more and more money. And they kind of lock up Nico now before maybe this season he goes out there and has a 1,500-yard season, double-digit touchdown season. And now you got to pay him, the bag. And you're doing it early. You're doing it now, and it's not costing you as much. So I like the move for the Texans. They lock it up. I mean, it's smart by them. They got Dell and Nico now for the next few years locked in. Dell's still on that rookie contract. He is a little older. They're like the same age, him and Nico. So does this now like solidify that Nico is the number one? And is that value going to go up? I think it does. I still think there's going to be a lot of people that love Tank Dell, and I like Tank Dell too. Tank Dell now becomes like a value where the Nico contract comes in, so people are going to be a little bit more off Tank Dell now, and he might be more available to get. So Tank Dell is definitely a good buy target in dynasty leagues. Can you buy him now for particularly a little bit lower? Now with the Nico contract. So, I mean, listen, the offense is looking good. They've got some guys locked up for the next few years, right? They gave the extension to Joe Mixon. They gave the contract to Schultz, right? So, like, they've locked up basically the offense for CJ Stroud. They've locked in the weapons for him. And that's important, especially for a young quarterback, like getting weapons around these guys. Like you see now, like Carolina's trying to do that now with Bryce Young, trying to get some weapons around him. Going out and getting Deontay, going out and getting the tight end, going out and getting a running back. Can only give out so many big contracts. Houston saying Nico is the number one. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yep. Which we kind of should have knew. I mean, it wasn't really a surprise. Like, was there was always the question was like, are they going to actually pay him, or are they going to franchise him? It's like, are we going to see some kind of T Higgins situation, like some kind of struggle over the contract? And they made it nice and easy. Nico said, okay, I'll take it now. Like I said, it's the perfect time. Like, don't wait till after the season when he goes for 1,500 yards and double digit touchdowns. Like, get it locked in now, so the money makes sense. Ayuk should have been paid already, and they waited so long for that. And now, they're gonna have to pay him like top dollar. So, I mean, Nico now should be, a pretty much a locked in top 15 dynasty wide receiver, at least for me, which he already was. Now maybe he moves up a spot or two. He might see wide receiver 10, 11. especially in the community, because now the community feels safe with Nico. He has the contract. All the time, it's we wait until guys get the contract. Jared Goff, a perfect example. The guy's been crazy cheap to buy for the past 2 years. Jared Goff has been, and now he gets the contract, and now all of a sudden, like he's valued higher. The same thing's going to happen with Tua, right? Tua's not valued as high right now, but once he gets the contract, then people are going to value him high, right? Nobody really liked him coming back, from those injuries that next year. And then he had a killer year, so people like him. And now the contract is like, oh, what are we going to do? He'll get the contract. Like, there's not many other quarterbacks out there that are going to be better than Tua for the Dolphins to go and get. Yeah, he definitely will crack the top 12. I mean, I've got to move him up now in my rankings, but he was already in like that 11 to maybe 14-ish range, for me. So top 10 is going to be very close. I would say top 12, top 15 to be safe, because some people might value some other guys higher. So I think he's pretty much locked in as a top 15 dynasty wide receiver. For me, he'll be top 12. Tino, what up, Tino? But yeah, Dub. I mean, now, like I said, he got the contract, so he does it again. And he's got the safety of having a quarterback on a good offense, being the number one wide receiver. Like, that's what we want. Like, when you see the top 12 finishes, like the top 12 fantasy wide receivers pretty much every year, like the one thing they have in common is they have, one of those great quarterbacks. So the chances are higher, with that as well. And again, now you can feel safe with him. So even if he gets hurt or something happens, like he's still going to solidify, he's still going to hold his value because of his situation. So Nico now solidified for me. And there's a few trades actually that have happened. Superflex leagues, 12 teams start 10. Okay, full PPR. These are trades that happened today. Amon-Ra St. Brown for Nico Collins, a 2025 first, and Tony Pollard. Now, that's a good tier down if you have Amon-Ra and you want to split up those assets. Do you need to, slightly rebuild or pick up some assets? You pick up the first round pick, you get Nico on top of it. Tony Pollard, you can move, or if you're contending, you're holding on to him. So that's not a bad tier down. Another one was Amon-Ra, Aiden O'Connell for Achan, Chigo Conquo, and Nico Collins. Not too bad as well. I'm not a big Achan guy, but it's not horrible when you're talking about value wise. Those are two that happened today. But yeah, he's again already starting to get traded. Nico Collins, Brandon Ayuk, Rashid Rice, and the 306 for the 101. So that's essentially like Caleb or Marv for Nico, Ayuk, Rashid, and the 306. So get some depth on the team if you need to break that 101 down. But yeah, how are you guys feeling now about Nico? Did you like Tank Dell before? Like, how do you feel now that Nico got the contract? And how are you feeling as Nico owners? I mean, it's great to have a bump right now after we just had, a bump down with the Diggs contract. Yeah, it is steep for the 101. And I know like Jameson Williams is being talked about a lot now as well. But yeah, JMO, I mean, JMO's been traded a lot lately, talked about a lot because of the Dan Campbell talking about he's improved a lot. And you can kind of expect that he is one of those value guys that, especially later, like in some of these startup drafts where, you can draft him really late. He's a guy that can increase in value. He's one of those guys you want to take the shots on later on in the draft. Like it doesn't cost you much, but he's a guy that can increase in value. And those are guys that we want, especially as like a rebuilding team or a team that's trying to just like accrue value. What up, Us? What is the hat? It's actually Puerto Rico. It's Puerto Rico. But I'm gonna bring up keep trade cut here, and we're just gonna surf the market. And we're gonna try and find some guys that we might want to buy right now. Zach, what up, Zach? I mean, depending on your format, he should be for me, like I was saying before, he's in like that wide receiver, like 10 to 15 range. So right around there in the 10 to 15 range. I'm not reaching for Nico. Don't overdraft him. I think you can still kind of draft him in the right spot, but anywhere in like that 10 to 15 range. Right, after, like, the Garrett Wilson, A.J. Browns, like, you could say maybe even, like, 8 to 15 range. Like, after that, you can kinda make a case for him, when you've got, like, Olave, Waddle, Neighbors, Odunze, like, Cheetah, London, like, you can make a case, to take him before any of those guys, so I'll rephrase that and say, like, wide receiver 8, 9 to 15. I'm not taking him over Puka or Garrett Wilson or AJ Brown, but he's a guy you want to tear down to, right? Do you have maybe an AJ Brown, Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, Jalen Waddle, right? Can we tear down to a Nico Collins? Right. And we're just using keep trade cut as a reference here, right? But can we tear down from any of these guys here? Chris Olave, especially, and target some of these guys. So I'm looking at like the bottom of like the huge second tier, right? From like wide receiver 10 all the way to like 30 almost. Or it's one huge tier. So can we take a Chris Olave, a Jalen Waddle, or even an AJ Brown and tear down to the Nico Collins, right? Zay Flowers is a huge buy for me. I'm trying to acquire a lot of Zay Flowers. I traded Chris Olave for Zay Flowers and a first round pick, right? Mid to late first round pick and Zay Flowers, a tier down from Chris Olave, right? Last year, I tiered down from Jalen Waddle to, Pittman and a first. Pete Higgins, right? Can we target some of these guys? DK Metcalf, JSN. I mean, I love these guys as buys. All these guys in the 20 range on here at the back end of that second tier. They're still going to give you, somewhat close to the production as these guys up there, but you're also getting the asset with that. You're also getting the first round pick. So at the wide receiver position, that's what I'm basically trying to do with any of these guys, in like that 7 to 12-ish range. We can use that tier down method. Pick up the asset and get you another, a good wide receiver. Right? Because all these guys, they pretty much fluctuate in this tier here, game after game, season after season. What's the team doing? What other wide receivers are on that team? What's the quarterback situation? Right? All these guys can kind of move up, in this tier. Or at least at the very least, they're gonna stay in that tier and still give you solid production. Is a sophomore slump real? I mean, it could be. It is to some guys because you got to think about it now that you go into that next year. Teams are now game planning for you, right? They've watched tape on you. They've got tape on you now, for the past year. So now they're kind of scheming against you. So, it sometimes becomes a little bit more difficult in that second year to try and overcome those things because teams weren't doing that, necessarily in that first year, or at least didn't have the tape to to study and game plan against you. So yeah, the sophomore slump, it is a real thing. That does it happen to everybody? No, but it definitely can. Like Jordan Addison, for instance, right? And I wouldn't even say necessarily it might be like a sophomore slump, but what do you have? 10 touchdowns, I think it was last year, right? With Kirk Cousins. Now Kirk Cousins is not there. I don't expect him to have as great of a season. He's still the number what 3 option, maybe the number 2 now because Hawkinson is down, right? But they don't have Kirk Cousins. Are they still going to throw the ball as much? Can he be as productive as he was? Like, don't forget, Justin Jefferson was out for a while last season too. So, Addison, was pretty much the wide receiver 1 for a number of weeks. Him and Hawkinson. So, I don't think Jordan Addison has as great of a season. I think he stays in kind of, this range here. He's pretty like safe guy to bet on, but he's not going to give you, the top end production that we thought we were going to get, with that offense, how it was with Kirk Cousins. So, but yeah, I'm really looking to buy, and Nico Collins was going to be a guy, we talked about tonight anyway, and it just so happened to get the contract. But Nico Collins was a huge buy for me. Zay Flowers as well, I think, with that offense, and then Andrews coming back now, and Zay Flowers kind of just solidifying himself as like a wide receiver too, pretty much. Some people are kind of off him. He's been very available to go out and get. So again, one of those perfect guys to tear down on. Devonta Smith, right? Didn't necessarily have a great season last year per se, as people think, but wasn't crazy far off the season he had before that. But safe, a guy that got a contract, safe in a good offense. Like he's going to be at least a wide receiver 2, and he's going to have those wide receiver 1 upside weeks. Zay Flowers, we talked about that. Tank Dell was going to be another guy, and even more so now that the news with Nico comes. Like now is the time where Tank Dell's value dips a little bit. He becomes a little bit more available. So go out and try and get you somebody in this offense. You want somebody in that CJ Stroud offense, in that Texan offense. Right? T. Higgins is another one. Why he's wide receiver 24? Like, I don't know. He's as safe as can be because even if he goes to a different team next season and he's not the number 1 wide receiver, what is he? He's still in the same range as you're paying now. It's the same value as you're paying now as some kind of wide receiver too. But when he leaves and goes to another team and he is that wide receiver 1, the value is going to skyrocket, right? So he's a guy that you want to attack in the bottom of this second tier here. So another good buy is T. Higgins. And again, it's not about just the players, but it's about the market. Like, how is the market going to respond? How are the GMs in your league going to respond when, this guy becomes a number 1 wide receiver somewhere if he does, or goes somewhere where he's the wide receiver 1? And at that point, you can use him to tier up. You can hold them, of course, if you want, but a lot of these guys where we're just playing in that back end of that that second tier, that huge tier that we have with these dynasty wide receivers is once they, when you tier down to them and once they move up to the top of that tier, now you can use them to tier up to the elite, right? To the JJs, the Chases, the Jeffersons, the Amon-Ra's, right? How can you get into that elite range is having a bunch of these guys or, tiering up from some of those guys in that like top of that second tier. The Olaves, the Waddles, the Londons now, especially, with Kirk Cousins going over there, right? The Ayuks, use these guys to your advantage and tear down. And it's not that I don't like them or I don't think they're going to do good. They can do very well, but let's play the market and let's get assets so we can build our teams, right? How can you buy some of these guys in the top tier here, right? Justin Jefferson, CD, Chase, Amon-Ra, even Marvin Harrison, Puka. Like, how are you able to afford any of these guys? AJ Brown, Garrett Wilson. You need multiple assets to do it. So when you have guys that are playing well and moving up in that tier, and then you've got first round picks on top of it, you've got assets, first, seconds, thirds, whatever treasure chest that you're trying to build up, you now have these assets to now move into the top tier to make your team better, right? Or go out and buy other assets to make your team better, right? Do you want to go out and buy some running backs during the season, right? Does a wide receiver of yours get hurt? Now you have ammunition to go fix that. Biggest question for Nico, how good will CJ be? I mean, I think we see like that he can play. We see how good he is and how he can be, and he's a smart quarterback. Like that's the one thing about CJ. It's like he's very smart. You could hear it, how he talks and explains things. He's very smart, and that's he's a student of the game, which is good. So sold Flowers on my contender, Flowers and Pitts for Purdy and Kelsey. Okay, well, you got the quarterback. Yeah, I mean, I'll take that. I don't hate Flowers, but I don't see him rising in value beyond low mid wide receiver two. Yeah, right now he's in, where is he at? He's about wide receiver 20, right? But he's a good value. Even if he doesn't rise, he's going to hold that value because he's one of those PPR guys. He's going to get a lot of catches. He's not going to rack up a ton of yards or maybe a ton of touchdowns, but he's going to be a solid wide receiver for you and at least hold some of that value. Against without Burrows is a different story. Yeah, it is a different story. Could it be a better story? Or at least can it be perceived in that way that it could be a better story, right? You don't have to necessarily like it, but somebody will. And that's when you can move them, right? You don't necessarily hate players, but we hate prices. But we're trying to buy low and we're trying to sell high, right? We're trying to gain assets so that we can build our team. So when you have injuries during the season, you have some picks or you have some ammunition that you can use to fix it. How many times is your team that you start the season with the team that you end the season with? Like it's very rare that you have the same starters throughout all the whole season. Shit happens, guys get hurt all the time. CJ and Mike are comedy gold. Yeah, I love that. I love all those. What I don't know whoever's podcast it is or whatever it was. Yeah, they're hilarious. Yeah, yeah, that's true. But I think, T is a good wide receiver. Like we see the talent that he has. So, he has the ability, or at least I think he has the ability to go out and be a wide receiver one somewhere. And even if he never actually becomes a wide receiver one somewhere, the fact that, the value is going to shoot up, it's just a market play. Like he's valued, low, behind a lot of these guys that, will only ever be wide receiver twos, really. The Zay Flowers, the Tank Dells, the Jordan Addisons, right? I mean, the market is showing that, he's valued at wide receiver 24 right now. So, can you take advantage and get you some T. Higgins, even if you don't like him or decide that you want to keep him, just for the straight, value perspective of like that once he leaves, like that value is going to go up. So, what's a good comp for Higgins? I don't know. I don't know. That's a tough one. He's tall, he's big, he's strong, he can run routes. Um, Mike Evans-ish, I guess. He's a guy that kind of comes to mind, right? Plaxico Burrish-ish. Like Brandon Marshall was a lot more fluid, I feel like, and better route runner, but like a Mike Evans, yeah. Mike Evans without the pedigree. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, he's been injured, but he's still finished as like, wide receiver too. What was it? I think his highest what? Let me go to let's pull up Higgins. Wide receiver 30 come in 2020, right? That rookie season. Wide receiver 22 in 2021. Wide receiver 17 in 2022. Played 16 games, 14 games, and 17 games, but he's came out of a lot of games, right? In that like the first quarter. You think Higgins will be traded? I don't know if necessarily Higgins will be traded at this point. I think they're probably just going to run it through with him for this season and then let him go. But it is possible that he still could get traded. But I'd highly doubt he's on this team after next season. So things change all the time. 2023, he only played 12 games, right? Last season on wide receiver 49. So, but 600 yards. Like Mike Evans is kind of a good example. Like he's 1,000-yard season. Like 900 yards, 1,091, 1,042, only 656 last year, obviously with the injuries. 6 touchdowns, 7 touchdowns, 5 touchdowns. So, can he get 1,100, 1,200 yards, stay healthy, double-digit tutties? Like, but he's got to find himself in the right situation, right? I don't think it's going to happen now in Jacksonville, right? After they go out and get Brian Thomas. Could he go out there next year and go to the Bills? Let's run through some of the teams and see, what would make sense. The Bills, the Patriots, the Cowboys as a wide receiver too. I don't know if they're probably not going to want to pay him. So, um, the Commanders. Uh, there's not like a ton of options. The Panthers. I know that was talk, even this year. Chargers, Broncos. I mean, there's a few spots. There's a few spots. Browns. I was gonna say Browns, and then I was like, they just fucking paid Jerry Judy. Like, why they did that, I don't know. But come to Dallas, Higgins. That would be pretty sick. Yeah, Higgins has been awesome on a per game basis, and that's even been that's even still been low because that, like, takes into account all of those games he played, like, 1 quarter or, just a few snaps, like, that's happened plenty of times, so, that's even brought his per game per her his per game points per game basis even down even less, than what it is right now, so Bills, Pats, Denver, yep, yep, I mean, Bills would be awesome, I mean, that's, like, the dream spot, though, I mean, we always kinda hope for that, and then, like, those things never happen, but Diaz, what up, Diaz? But yeah, I was surfing through, wide receivers, and this is kind of the range that I'm targeting, right? You can start at like Devonta Smith, right? Devonta, Nico, Zay, Tank Dell, DK, T. Higgins, JSN. Like I like targeting this range on the tier downs from some of those guys in the top 8 to 15 ish range. But that's what I'm looking at basically for wide receivers. Bills is a spot. I mean, they could afford it too, like, and they don't have to pay him, like, crazy amount of money. Like, I don't know, he doesn't necessarily warrant, like, the top production money, but they can get him for, a good price. And just being with Josh Allen at that point, I mean, that value is gonna skyrocket. I mean, and now he's got, an opportunity to put up monster seasons. Yeah, we talked about Nico for a while, but, what up, Diaz? How you feeling about Nico? We've been saying Nico's the guy to buy, and now he finally gets the contract, so that was the one thing about Nico, that was the only thing that was kinda skeptical, the only kinda risk to it was, what's gonna happen with the contract with Nico? Are they gonna fuck around? Are they gonna franchise him? We're gonna or is he gonna go somewhere else? And Higgins would probably take Nico money. Yeah, yeah, I can see that, exactly. Right around kinda in that range. Yep, yep. I agree with you guys. I-Dub and Tino, yep. So, he's affordable, like, he doesn't cost as much as those top guys, but he can give you, he can possibly give you that kind of production in the right offense. And I think the Bills can definitely use that. Even with having Keon Coleman, that could be even better for Keon Coleman, where, the defenses aren't focusing on him. Like, now you've got Higgins there as well. Yeah, said overexposed was buying up. Now it's time to see what this effect has on his value. You gotta be convicted. Yeah, yeah. I mean, nothing necessarily, like, changed, like, oh, he just got the contract, like, and now people are automatically, like, convicted. I mean, I've been on the Nico side of it, and now is the time where, right, we talk about being in the market all the time. Now is the time to sell, right? Search around, see if that value bumped up enough where, you can get into some of those top tier guys, right? The Amon-Ra's, the Chases, the JJs, right? Or now did it bump up enough to where you can tear down, right? What do you need to do? Yeah, we talked about that, Diaz. Contract just makes people feel safe, right? I talked about that with Jared Goff too, right? For the longest, Jared Goff has been so cheap, in Dynasty. And now he gets the contract, and now people have a different view on him, right? Tua is going to be the same thing. People don't value him as much, but now once he gets the contract, people are gonna value him, right? That's just how, that's just how it is. People, you wait for the contract, but then you're paying, like, once it happens, now you're paying, top dollar, right? You're paying the ceiling price, which you don't want to do, right? We want to buy into it before it happens. I could be wrong, but I mean, you're not telling me that Miami is not going to sign Tua and they're just going to go out there and get another quarterback. Now, it can happen, but what's the real chances of that? Like, Tua right now is QB 18 on Keep Trade Cut. Led the league in passing last year, 26 years old. But we like Trevor Lawrence more because he's like a year and a half younger, right? Can we tear down to Tua from guys like T Law, Dak Purdy, Kyler Love, Herbert, right? Do you need to tear down and pick up assets on top? Can you get a first on top of it? I mean, Tua is the best thing that happened to Miami since Scarface. Bro, they love Tua. They love Tua, but he's not valued that way because he doesn't have the contract yet. Once he gets it, then he's going to be valued that way. Bryce Young has been a buy pretty much all off season. Jared Goff's been a buy for the last 2 years. Kyler Murray's been a buy for the last 2 years since he got injured. Now everybody's hot on Kyler Murray. It's too late. Like, you could have got him 2 years ago for so much cheaper. I'll scroll through some of the running backs here just quickly, and we'll see if what can we spot here. I mean, we've talked about Achan as a sell for a while now. We've talked about Kyron as a sell, since all of last year. Jonathan Brooks up here at RB9. I don't mind James Cook. Like, can you come off of an ETN or an HN or even a Kyron and get yourself like a James Cook plus? Like, can you get a first on top of it? Isaiah Pacheco too. Isaiah Pacheco is interesting. I've always hated Isaiah Pacheco, but they continue to just not address the RB position. So is he one of those outliers that, is going to be with them for a while? They've got what? I think what, 2 more seasons of Pacheco? Rashard White is another one, a good buy, right? They've talked about they want to give somebody else, some of that workload. They don't want to kill Rashard White, but he's still going to be the main guy. They got Bucky Irving, who's like a miniature Rashard White. Um, he's still going to catch a ton of passes, so he's very, very safe, right? Can we tear down again from any of those ETN, Achans, Kyrans? You could even say JTs. Can we pick up a first and Rashard White on that? Right, Henry's a good buy for any kinda contending team, but you're probably not getting him right now. You probably gotta wait till in season when the team with Henry is just not competing anymore. Henry most of the time is on a competing team. I mean, Tajay Spears, Joe Mixon's all the way down here at RB21. I like Mixon. Mixon's a good buy, especially at this price all the way down here. Like, he just got a little extension. He's in a good offense. Like, those are some of the guys you want, and, what can we expect? Another, what, 2 years out of Mixon? What can we expect with any of these running backs? Probably 1 to 2 years, right? Zamir White, Swift, right? Jacobs, White, Pacheco, Cook, like, What can we expect? Kyron, I mean, Saquon, like even ETN. I mean, he's got what, 1 year left on the deal? Monty. I love buying Monty for cheap, especially if you're in like a point per carry. Monty, Najee, like I love Najee at this price at RB 26. Like, give me Najee in a first, for some of these guys up here. Play the market. Like, not all these guys are going to be relevant 5, 6, 7 years down the road. They're not like wide receivers or quarterbacks. Even Tony Pollard at RB 29. That's a huge buy. I like that. Kamara RB 27. Like, can we pick up some of these assets? You're contending, right? And I see a bunch of people trying to, spend first or spend seconds. I got no running backs. I need running backs. Like, no, you don't. You could buy some of these way cheaper guys that are going to still give you some kind of points. Wait till the season starts. You don't have to do it now. You're going to be able to get guys like Zach Moss, Chase Brown. I mean, Singletary. Like, let me pay these prices, rather than spending for some guys that are all the way up here if you need to. But depending on your situation, you can tear down, tear up. There's not much to tear up to. If you're not tearing up to, JT, CMC, Jameer Gibbs, Brees Hall, and Bijan, it's not worth tearing up. Maybe you can throw Saquon in there because he's got a pretty healthy contract. Right. But anybody else, like, just again, use the next tier, use the back end of those tiers. Like, I like Ken Walker as a buy too. A lot of people are on Charbonnet, but we saw Charbonnet play now. He's just not as good as Kenneth Walker, right? Is he a better pass catcher? Possibly, but he doesn't move like Kenneth Walker does. So I Kenneth Walker at RB11 prices, like I do like that. Can't buy Tua. He's the same as Carr for me. I mean, he could be. He could not be. I mean, he's that guy from Miami, I think. So just again, once he gets that contract, people are gonna start loving him again, man. Yeah, the offenses are crazy. I mean, Achan, the problem with Achan is just like you've got to pay RB what 7 prices for Achan. That's just not worth it for me for a guy that's going to get, as I've always said, like 8 to 12 touches. Is he going to win you some weeks and have some explosive plays and explosive weeks? Like, yes, he is, but is he really worth like an RB7 price for that? For like an RB2 that, he's going to lose you some weeks too. He's always going to be in a committee. There's always going to be a guy in front of him. Mostert is that guy right now. Jalen Wright is the next Mostert. So, even when Mostert goes, like Wright jumps into that role, Achan keeps his same role. So I don't mind Achan if he's my RB2 on my squad, but I'm not going out there and paying, an RB7 price. Like I can't do that. It's just too much. Rookie RB. Yeah. I mean, Jonathan Brooks, Trey Benson, Jaleel McLaughlin. Right? A lot of people talked about Blake Watson as well. So Ty Chandler, I have a ton of Ty Chandler. Right? What is Minnesota doing with a guy, Aaron Jones, a guy who has not been able to stay healthy the past few years at all for more than a string of games? Right? Ty Chandler is a perfect one, right? That's going, we're going all the way down here. These are the guys that you want to have, on your bench. You want to have a bench full of some of the guys where you go, you keep going down here. Jerome Ford, Kamani Vidal, Roshan Johnson, Gus Edwards, JK. Let's keep going down and see, right? McLaughlin, Rico Dowdle, I have a bunch of. Right? You're telling me an offense with Zeke, is Zeke going to be able to stay healthy? They're talking about it's going to be split a little bit. Ray Davis, I have a ton of Ray Davis. He's going to get work in the Buffalo offense. Like, we know that James Cook is not the bell cow guy. right? These are just cheap guys to have on your bench, right? Antonio Gibson, right? The RB2 behind Stevenson, or maybe the third down guy. I mean, they usually always love having a third down guy. They don't typically give, the workhorse role to anybody. When Stevenson did have that, it was because all the injuries that happened. Now with a different coaching staff, maybe things change, but Tank Bigsby, right? Fill up your bench with all these guys. Damian Pierce is another one. And you can go on and on, for all these guys. Gibson, I love Gibson. I have a ton of Gibson from last year even. It didn't work out last year, but I love Gibson, especially at the price. Nobody cares about him. Nobody's even thinking about him. Everybody's on to, Ramondre Stevenson and, Gibson, the cheapest of any running back. You can get him thrown in a trade. You can probably buy him for some fab, to be honest, if somebody's got him on their squad. That's the May. Okay. I mean, you just don't know who the running back is going to be in that Denver backfield. Now, if you're talking about just based off of talent, like Javante is pretty much superior to all of those guys there, talent wise. But the injury happened to him. Is he still the same guy? And can we trust Sean Payton to give him the workhorse role? Like, it's out of our hands, and it's hard to bet on that now. So I'm kind of just staying away from that whole backfield. But get a few of the Jaleel McLaughlins, get a few of the Blake Watsons, right? 10-team super flex. What's up, Sean? No tight end premium contender again. Okay, champ last year. Only tight end is Andrews. That's fine, bro. Is Bowers a viable 108 selection? Let him sit mostly. I mean, it's a 10 team. There's no tight end premium, so I'm not really. I don't think I'm wasting the pick on Bowers there. Like, depending who's there at the 108, like, can Bowers give you an advantage after Andrews is gone? Maybe. I mean, you're never going to play Bowers. I would rather probably even trade the pick instead of just picking Bowers. Let somebody else take him. But 10 team, I mean, 108 is kind of a little bit less valuable. You're looking at, even the quarterbacks, right? I mean, you're talking about like Odunze probably should be gone. Like, I'm taking him over May or McCarthy. So you're talking about like the lads, the Brian Thomases, like, are even those guys like valuable enough that you want to make that selection? Can we trade this pick for, a more established player, right? We need some hammers in the 10 team. I'm fine with Andrews. You're going to be fine with Andrews for a while. Like, so I'd pick up any backup tight end if you need one, but let's see if I can move that pick, see what the market is for Bowers. Does somebody really want him? Does somebody really value him? So, Marty, what up, Marty? Denver trying to get the biggest RB room. I think all their dudes over 225. Yeah, I mean, Sean Payton likes to run like that. A few different backs, like he always has. Yeah, exactly, Sean. Can you move that in some pieces? Maybe you got some bench pieces that are laying around. Consolidate some of those bench guys. See if you can tier up at a position. But you're fine with Andrews. I don't know why everybody's off of Andrews right now. Like, nobody seems to care about him. I'll scoop up as much Mark Andrews as I can. We saw Lamar obviously like lost some weight, looks a lot skinnier now. I don't know if that's necessarily a good thing. Like, I thought it was great last year. Like, he stayed healthy. I felt like he didn't force the run. Um, and he was strong enough to kind of, take hits. Like, what happens now, like that he's skinnier now? I mean, does that make him, more possible, to injury? Estimate Mark Ingram. Oh, Mark Ingram, I feel like was way more like nimble than Estime. Like Ingram could kind of move a little bit. And he was a great pass catcher. Like Estime's not that. I think they've already said like Estime is more of a first and second down guy. I mean, Sean Payton has come out and said that. Which what kind of Mark Ingram was, but I don't feel like that the pass catching is there with Estime or like the nimbleness, the way that Ingram can kind of move. But we shall see. We shall see. But yeah, throw any questions that you guys have out there. Appreciate everybody coming out tonight. As usual for the Tuesday show, every Tuesday, 10 p.m. Eastern. Smash the like for me, guys. Smash that subscribe if you are new. Easy way to support the channel is free. But I'll give you guys a few more minutes to throw any last second questions you guys got in there. But I mean, we talked about Nico. We talked about a lot of, some wide receivers to buy. Some running backs. We talked about tier downs. Especially with those wide receivers. So, those are the moves that we should be trying to make right now, not trying to go buy running backs and fill out my roster because we're not starting anybody right now. We have no games. We're not scoring any points. Jay, what up, Jay? What's goody? Roshan Johnson, what's the concern level now that it's crowded in Chicago? I think Herbert's got what 1 year left. So I mean, I think Roshan is, he's a pass catcher. He can run the football too. Like, can he be the third down guy? Is Swift the first and second down guy? Like, I think it's going to be some kind of committee over there. I don't think Roshan Johnson is going to be the guy, and I don't care what kind of contract they gave Swift. I don't know if he's going to be the guy. So, Swift has never been able to kind of stay healthy enough, and even in the best situation that he's ever been with on an Eagles team, he wasn't able to, produce kind of to his ceiling or to the top of his ability of kind of what we wanted. So, what's going to happen now in Chicago? Like, I don't see how it can be better than it was on the Eagles. I mean, he got paid, but I mean, so did Miles Sanders. I mean, look how that turned out. So, I think he's going to be part of the backfield. He'll have a role with Swift. I don't think they like Herbert at all because they just keep getting more running backs. And then Herbert will be gone eventually. So I do like Roshan still. I think he's a decent buy low or guy to just kind of stash for now. Especially if Swift can't stay healthy, which hasn't exactly always happened. Song, what up, Song? What up, Song? What's goody? Who's trusting Bo Nix this season? I think Nix could be like decent. Like, he doesn't have to be great. He just has to be decent. I mean, they're going to focus on like a short passing game and working their way down the field. So, I think just being a quarterback that he is and the draft capital that he's got, like, he's a pretty decently safe player as far as like his value. And if he winds up playing like decent enough, I mean, he's a starting quarterback. So he doesn't really have much weapons around him. I know they went out and got Troy Franklin. They still got Sutton over there, but we'll see. I hear Bo is struggling. Yeah, I heard he was doing great. Like, you'll hear different things every day. I mean, one day he's struggling, one day he looked great. He didn't have any incomplete passes. Like, you're gonna hear a bunch of different things, throughout the off season that people are gonna wind up, hyping up. That there's just nothing else to talk about right now. So every little thing that we hear at a camp, people are going to wind up, hyping up and doing all that. So Troy Franklin going to be and Bo going to be a Stroud and Dell. I don't know about all that. I mean, I loved me, some Troy Franklin. He did wind up falling in the draft for whatever reason that was. Apparently there were questions like if he loved football. So I mean, I don't know, but there's not much competition in that room. Like that's the good thing for Troy Franklin. I don't think he'll be anything more than ever like a wide receiver 2 at best. Like I think that they can go out there and get another wide receiver. I don't think they'd hesitate to get like an alpha. Excuse me. I don't think they'd hesitate to go and get like an alpha guy. So I think he'll like at most be stuck in that wide receiver 2 range, like at best. So I think realistically, he'll probably be like a wide receiver 3-ish, maybe a flex guy. But for this particular season, being that there's not much there, I mean, wide receiver 2, like I guess you can say is in the possibilities, but that's hoping for the best. I think Bo will be good eventually, but that team needs a lot of help. Yeah. Yeah, I feel you, Tino. I agree. Sean Payton probably needs some help too. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. We'll see. All right, guys, I'm about to get up out of here. Make sure you guys like the stream, subscribe if you haven't already. Throw any last question you got in the chat, but we'll be here next Tuesday, 10 Eastern as well. Make sure you guys are following on Instagram and Facebook as well. But yeah, let's get up out of here. Appreciate y'all. See y'all next week.